All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's REOX webinar. Auction is not a dirty word, bridging the gap between agents, servicers, and auction platforms. I'm Annie Collier, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. Thank you all for joining us. I see we still have some people trickling in from the wait room. We will begin with brief presentations from each panelist you see on the screen, followed by a moderated discussion, audience Q&A, and closing remarks. As a reminder, please type your questions throughout the webinar and we will save it till the end. Today, we are bringing together the major auction platforms and leaders from some of the industry's top platforms to discuss how auctions have evolved, how they work alongside agents and servicers, and where the industry is headed next. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Our first speaker is Michael Jansta. He is the Chief Operating Officer at Xome. Michael has extensive experience in mortgage servicing, auction strategy, and real estate technology, with a focus on creating scalable disposition solutions for sellers, buyers, and agents. Jansta, thank you so much for being here. The floor is all yours. I'll now turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm kind of an auction addict. Across my entire life, I've been an auction addict. And other than that, I'm a music junkie. So we've got two big addictions like fighting with each other here. And I gotta come clean here in the beginning. We have Hubzu and auction.com online, and I worked for both of those companies for a number of years. So we're all friends here, and this is all about promoting that auction is not a dirty word, even though ironically I've said it's a dirty word for the past 20 years, at least in real estate. And that perception is definitely changing. So at Xome, it's Xome, rhymes with home, but starts with an X, and not that anyone would ever spell it that way. But pro tip, if you want to spell it with a Z, you'll end up at the same place. So Xome with a Z or Xome with an X gets you right to the same place. One of the biggest differentiators, I think, for the Xome auction platform is that we work directly with agents a lot, and we have a network of 2,000 agents. It's just under 2,000. We rounded up to 2,000 agents that are in the Xome agent network. That those are agents that we hire for BPOs and that we assign REOs to, and that network has been around for over 10 years. I think actually 13 years, and we really focus not on all the people that have come to Xome and created profiles in the past and are no longer real estate investors. We focus directly on 985,000 active real estate investors that we have that continually are coming in and out of the Xome platform, and that's who we're directly marketing to. But when we have properties that kind of don't fit the mold for the people that are in the network, we look outside to public data and reach out directly to investors wherever they are in the marketplace. Can we go to the next slide? I'm not going to go through all the detail on this, but Auction Reimagined, we are very agent inclusive, technology enabled. I'm actually going to show you a preview of the new Xome that's coming out in a couple of weeks. If you go to Xome.com today, you'll see our existing platform that's been around for 5 or 6 years, and we're relaunching it with a new user interface, user experience, and one of the other differentiators on Xome.com is that we have the auction marketplace where we promote foreclosure properties. Where we promote foreclosure properties that we conduct those sales for, where we promote REOs, bank-owned properties, institutional-owned properties, but also a lot of agents bring listings onto the Xome platform. It's something we call Sell with Xome, and we work with investors direct. Many of them who actually bought properties on our auction platform and then relisted them back on Xome to sell to another investor to turn into a rental or to a home buyer. We have an expert seller program where we work with homeowners that are going into foreclosure and help them avoid that by selling their home in advance through our agent network. A lot of those are short sales and some of those are auction sales as well. And then we're a full asset management service for our institutional sellers, where we manage the properties going into foreclosure through repairs and onto retail. And I'll show you an example of that in a page here or two. Next one. I'm definitely not going to read all this. But it basically is highlighting that Xome.com is a full featured site with all the due diligence that you need for real estate properties. And we work with the agents to obtain that DNA and confirm that DNA, that property DNA. And also we work with all sorts of public databases to add more information to there. We also have a proprietary valuation model called our XVM, which stands for the Xome Valuation Model, which incorporates a couple different AVM models and our own proprietary model. And we're always matching properties with the correct buyers. So that's what Xome does. We hunt, we don't forage. Next. So this is it. It's a very simple new website. If you go to Xome.com today, you have to kind of decide, I want to go to the auction website or I want to go to the retail website. There's no integrated search between the two. And this should be launching in mid-July, but it's all around personalization. We've expanded how we personalize properties over the past 5 years and launched a whole new way that every time a user comes in, we're customizing those searches based on the selections that they've pre-made and the actions that they've taken, and it's continually updating. And so every user that comes in will get personalized results. If you look at these two Texas properties, they're foreclosure properties. We have a big auction coming up July 7th, and those are probably showing up on my page because I've been looking at a lot of the properties that are going to be in Texas on July 7th. So next slide, please. And here's a view of our search. And so you can see, like I did a search for the state of Florida here. And if you look at the tab in the middle at the top, it says there's 271 auction listings. And as you look to the right, you'll see most of those are foreclosure sales. And one of the things that, I mean, I'm sure all of us have seen is that foreclosure inventory has been going up, whereas REO inventory has been staying stagnant. And once those foreclosure sales happen, we'll see, the properties that don't sell there start to boost up the REO inventory. But today, foreclosure inventory is starting to elevate again. And if you wanted to look at every property that was active on the MLS, you can do that right on Xome as well by clicking the tab to the right that has 268,000 listings. So it's auction first and then retail second on Xome.com, but it's always a click away to look at the entire market versus just what Xome has on our auction platform. And I think that's one of the other great distinctions between all of the companies that are on this webinar is that if you see this first house here at 1608 Southwest 13th Terrace, it's not going to be, on Hubzu, and it's not going to be on auction.com, and it's not going to be on RealtyBid. Every listing we have is unique with our platforms. And so if you have a buyer, you're not trying to figure out like what store do I have to go in to purchase that property. Or if you have a listing that's an REO, it's going to be in one place and it's not going to be in competing venues. So that's something that is going to continue to be. Next slide, please. As I talked about foreclosure inventory being high, I wanted to talk about Xome conducts sales in all of these dark orange states. There's 28 states where we're actually going out and conducting the live foreclosure sale. And the other 26 are called marketing services only. And most of those are judicial foreclosure states where a sheriff conducts it or a referee or some sort of officer of the court conducts those sales. But we're active in all 50 states and a couple of territories, including Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and Guam. And so the foreclosure opportunity, which we don't think of a lot when we think about REO agents and real estate agents, but I'd argue that this is a place where a lot of inventory is out there. And if you guys have investors, you could be out on the courthouse steps in the morning, at a live foreclosure sale. These are almost all done live, except in a couple locations like Florida and a county or two in Colorado. And I think Philadelphia is still doing it. but everything else is done live in person. And you could be out there generating your own fees on this. There's not going to be a co-op percentage, but I've argued for years that I don't know why there's not more agents out there representing investors that don't want to do it themselves. So, and we'll talk a little more about that as we talk about remote bidding and our XBid platform. Can we go to the next slide? Speak of the devil, XBid. XBid is a program we launched about a year ago on Xome, and it's so those live sales you don't have to actually attend them all. There's some sales where we can't do XBid. A lot of those judicial foreclosure states I was talking about, the sheriff would have to use our software or a competing software for remote bidding to conduct those sales, or we'd have to have individual people in all those places with it, paper cashier's checks on your behalf as a proxy bidder. But there are states where Xome is conducting the live auction, and our person, our auctioneer out on the courthouse steps, is conducting it using our technology. And bidders are able to wire in funds. It goes into an escrow account. And when a bid is placed, that bid is placed out on the courthouse steps, and it can be done as a proxy bid placed in advance, or it can be done in real time, where if you have funds in your escrow account, you've wired in the money, whether that's yourself or an investor that you're representing, those bids will be placed. And it doesn't sound like it's rocket science, but it is really actually complicated because if you think about, I mentioned Texas on July 7th. There's going to be 254 live auctions in Texas on Tuesday, July 7th, starting at 10 a.m. A couple of those counties will start at 1 p.m., but you can't be in 254 places at once. But if you're bidding online using this technology and you wired in funds, you could be bidding anywhere you wanted in that state, or in Georgia, or in California or Arizona. And I'll show you that map on the next slide. But one of the beautiful things about remote bidding is that if you put $500,000 into your account, you can bid on an unlimited number of properties as long as that bid is under $500,000, and it'll place them in real time as those auctions start to be conducted live. And you'll probably hear it from the other guys on this, but there's way more live auctions in person in this country that are turning into investor sales than there are in online auctions. And that's one of those unintuitive things that doesn't make sense to a lot of people. But the law says you got to do it out there, and we have to be out there. But as an investor or an agent representing an investor, you guys don't. You can bid online. And so my final slide is next. That's the footprint that we have for XBid nationwide for remote bidding. We're active in 1,212 counties across 13 states. And we're active in all those counties in those states, not just a couple of them. So if you look at Texas, it's 254. In Georgia, it's 169. In California, I'm guessing 58. I can't remember exactly how many there are, but there's 13 states there. We got 6 coming soon. And our team is placing those bids. You're bidding online at a live auction that's actually happening in real time. So that's it for Xome, and let's move on to the next person. I think it's Paul. Oh, I damn it, got it wrong.
Thank you, Jansta, and thank you to Xome also for participating in this webinar discussion. Next, we do have Christopher Link, who is the Senior Vice President of Asset and Default Management at RealtyBid and Covius. Christopher brings nearly 2 decades of experience in REO, default servicing, and asset management, and helping clients navigate changing market conditions and disposition strategies. Christopher, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. I'll now turn it over to you.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And Jansta, good job. I too am a bit of an auction junkie, but mostly it's because of the REO side of the business more than anything else. Let me tell you a little bit about Covius. Covius is a large conglomerate of companies, much like the Nation Star world used to be. We're Clayton. We just bought T365 for a title company. National Title and Clearing, Service First, and then Covius is kind of the operating umbrella. But we kind of soup to nuts, cradle to grave. Covius is probably the largest company that most of you have never heard about, unless you're an actual servicer. So RealtyBid is the only consumer-facing piece of Covius. The rest of them are really servicer to servicer, bank to bank, that sort of thing. So RealtyBid's been around. You can go to the next slide. Um, RealtyBid's been around since really close to the beginning of 2000, although it's changed hands a few times. It was acquired by Covius in 2019. Previously, the Chronos Solutions Group. Uh, they bought RealtyBid. They bought some of our doc business, things like that, but really not all of Chronos. And then have gone on to purchase additional complementary businesses. Um, RealtyBid is, we're small, we're nimble, but we're also very customer focused. And the nice thing about RealtyBid is there's a certain amount of tenure with our staff. I think at this point, my average tenure is about 12 years. And that includes all the people coming and going. So there's a great deal of cohesion. If you've ever dealt with RealtyBid, you've probably dealt with the same people that are there today. Next slide. So I wanted to talk about really what's driving foreclosure. Now, all of us on this call do everything from foreclosure side all the way to the agent direct side. And we do as well. The thing that's fascinating to me, because I've been through a number of these cycles, is that this is not the same cycle that we had in the last major downturn, but there's some similarities in it. All of us have noted that foreclosure starts, foreclosure sales have continued decline year over year. That really doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot because we're still at about 20% of what we were, say, even 6 years ago. It's a very small number just to the 2019 vintage, and certainly we're 5% of where we would have been in 2012, 2013. So we all understand the model. If it doesn't become REO until it goes to foreclosure, then once it goes to foreclosure, if it doesn't sell at the courthouse steps, it comes back as REO. There's some nuances in there with the CWCOT program and the ability to sell the CWCOT, which is kind of a not REO and is REO. But ultimately, that's how you get REO into the system. And Jance is right. It's a slow, kind of steady growth, but that's not where the business really needs to be focused on for the agents. It's great. We're doing more and more of our business as agent direct, much like Jance just said, and I promise you, same with Russo and Paul. We're seeing a lot more agent direct business where they've bought an asset. It may have been bought on RealtyBid, repairing it, fixing it up, turning around and selling it. That's a pretty normal model for us today. 6-8 years ago, it was certainly not a normal model. That was kind of the outlier. This year, we're really looking at, there's a little over 40,000 properties with default notices out. That's actually down a little bit from April. We had seen kind of a very steady, deliberate increase month over month, but from a year over year, we're up 14%. Don't let that get too excited for you. At the end of the day, up 14% from a almost historic low is still pretty low. But one in every 3,500 housings, those are in some sort of default, which is, that's a lot in some of these smaller markets. Georgia, Texas, we call them Super Tuesday. Those are the fastest foreclosure states for us that have any kind of volume. Last month, they were at the top of the list. And this month, they're really down close to the middle of the list as far as foreclosure filings. Not sure exactly what's driving that, but we're going to see kind of ebb and flow in hot markets. I've shown, Cleveland, Ohio, as an example, has the worst foreclosure rate, so 1 in 1,500 properties of any large city in the country. That's a lot. That's going to decimate Cleveland, Ohio. But I went back and looked at the 2012 numbers. It was about 1 in 600. So we're still far away from the 2012 numbers. Um, there's going to be pockets that are hurt harder than others. Next slide, please. So I love the process of thinking of why are foreclosures happening. Taxes, insurance are a big deal. I wanted to kind of put together a real world example of, let's say somebody bought their house in 2021, bought it, got a great interest rate, 2.63%, P&I, $1,600, same P&I today. But their insurance and their taxes have gone up significantly, which is driving households to feel a little bit tighter, causing them the strain of either they've got to earn more money, they can't afford the house, and they got to let it go. That's a 27% increase from 2021 to 2026 on a real life example. I don't think people are getting 27% more in their pocketbooks between now and 5 years ago. And it's making it harder on the homeowners that have bought maybe in 2021 at a great interest rate. They can't refinance themselves out of that problem because interest rates are double that at least. Another bullet point on there, we're seeing, and I'm sure the rest of the team is seeing, the 2022 to 2024 vintage of properties during the heart of COVID. Those are the ones we're seeing that are defaulting because they have little to no equity, and the interest rates, there's not an off ramp for them, which is driving foreclosure sales. It's in the good old days that would be a strategic default. That is not the case at this point. It's just they don't have an off ramp, and those off ramps have gotten fewer with the default waterfall options kind of coming off the table that were available for most of COVID. The increase in durable goods, they're outpacing wages. Layoffs, the biggest one was the government layoff, which I think had some impact on the world, but not significantly. And then the default waterfall, as I mentioned, that is something that buyers, homeowners used to be able to go back and do modification after modification after modification. Their options are a lot less than what they were 18 months ago. And, a cute phrase I say is, you don't pay, you don't stay. I want everybody to have a dignified and easy way to exit a property, because these are real lives. These are people's homes. These are people's equity that they've got in there. And so what we want to do is make it as easy as we can before it gets to foreclosure. And that's what the services are doing. And then the last one is the DSCR model. That seems to have increased exponentially in the last probably 36 months. But it's also got a much higher default rate. And I know RealtyBid is an asset management company as well as an auction company. And so we asset manage for a number of DSCR lenders. And what we're seeing is typically the properties come back in tougher condition, because rehabs weren't done, or renters left the property in a bad spot, things like that. And so it's not the same as 2012. It rhymes a little bit with 2012, if that makes any sense. And then let's just go to the last one here. This in 28 to 2012. We're not going to see thousands and thousands of REO coming online every single month. That's just not going to happen. But all of our models are indicating that we're really looking at it at 2014 to 2016 level is the stabilization. We're now, less than 20% of that right now. I mentioned the taxes and insurance are causing a problem. And then really, I want to stress that auction isn't a dirty word. Um, it, for lack of a better term, it democratizes the sales of an asset. It exposes it to a much wider audience than maybe the local MLS ever did before. On our asset management side of the house, if we haven't had a good offer on a property in 30 days, I put it into dual path just so that we can expose that to a nationwide set of buyers as opposed to just the local MLS. Um, and some things that your team, if you're on the sales side here, move upstream, track the notices of default, help the defaulted borrowers with short sales. Short sales are coming back, and it's because of that 2022 to 2024 vintage that there is actually a need for a short sale. And look at it, when people are getting those notices of default, those are folks that need a graceful exit, and the brokers that are on the call can absolutely help with that. We do a lot of investor direct and consumer direct sales on our website, RealtyBid.com. And we just think that it democratizes it. It makes it better for the homeowner if it's still in their hands, or it's better for the bank if it's in their hands. Um, and it allows the sale of real property to as wide an audience. When we dual path something, the agent still gets paid what they were going to get paid if it was just in the MLS. This is not we're taking it away from the agent. We're just an extension of the agent's marketing, if that makes any sense. So that's all I've got. Look forward to taking Q&A later in the call.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Yes, that all made perfect sense. We appreciate you joining us here today. And now we will be moving on. I'm going to give everyone a chance to write down your email address. And also, if you are left at the end of this presentation with a question unanswered, everyone should have my email. You can send it over to me and I'll make sure it gets to the right person. All right. So now we are moving on to our next speaker, who is Mike Russo, and he is the head of product innovation at auction.com. Russo's background spans brokerage, auctions, and technology. As a former brokerage owner, licensed auctioneer, and now the product leader at auction.com, he brings a unique perspective on the future of auction disposition. Russo, we are so happy to have you here with us today, and I will now turn the presentation over to you.
Great, thanks. You could start with leave the other slide. What I'm going to talk about is a little bit different. I have spent 20 years of my life. I did not start in default. If you go back to the previous slide, actually.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's all right. I didn't start in default. I didn't know default. I owned the Sotheby's real estate brokerage in Aspen, Colorado. I owned that through the crash, which I don't suggest for anyone. We had a whole, I actually think I termed the phrase, no one actually needs a home in Aspen during that time, because we literally saw the market go to zero. And from that, one of my co-Sotheby's owners from Florida had pioneered concierge auctions and asked me to join him. And I spent the next 7 years of my life selling the most expensive homes in the world. Actually, I sold properties at auction in 26 states and 17 countries, ranging on average 5 million. But actually, after I left, I represented a buyer selling my most expensive property at over $40 million. What I learned about that, what I want to talk to about you all that are agents in the market is you're here about winning, right? Like we all have platform, like everybody here's got a big platform. We all have buyers on our platform. And how does that help you win and make money in your marketplace? That's the most important thing that we're talking about. I kind of dipped my toe and I built a platform called Spark Offer, which is really I put multiple offers that you'd see traditionally when the market's hot, and a sealed bid auction is kind of synonymous. Spark Offer was really a sealed bid auction platform that was purchased by auction.com, which is how I got here. And I was able to dip my toe in the REO business at that point. And so, what do auctions mean to you in the market? And everybody sort of touched on it a little bit here. Number one is why people, because I've sat, I don't know, 2,000 homes with homeowners talking to them as auction as an option. And so why do they choose that option just compared to the traditional listed on the MLS? And it really is about time and certainty, right? It's like I have a defined time and I need a more certain sale. And that's something that an auction brings to the table. You hear people, I actually have a slightly different view in regards to um, the wider net of the MLS. I'm going to tell you it's a narrower net, right? And what I mean by that is look at each auction company and look at the inventory that we sell. And when you have a property that you're interested in selling and a homeowner's interested in a time certain sale, you got to match that person's situation and their property to the potential buyer, right? And say, like, is this because the people that buy at foreclosure and they buy REO, they also buy from wholesalers, which I hope if anyone's on here, I'm sorry that does it, but I do think it should be outlawed. Um, it does nothing but damage homeowners. I actually gave a presentation a couple years ago, and I'm going to tell you all the same thing when it comes to winning, right? Is like your ability to win a client. The number one place that I would turn, as you heard Chris say, track notice of defaults. You know who tracks notice of defaults? The wholesaler, right? They're blowing up these people's phones, right? Then you, as the local representative, the trusted advisor, when you see these things happening, like I'd be reaching out and teaching them, how you can help them against get a time certain sale. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for a time certain sale. A lot of times they're looking for privacy, right? And so the auction platforms can give you exposure to investor buyers in a competitive set with actually more privacy than necessarily being broadly across the MLS, right? And so those are things that you should talk to these folks about. There's another, and the way I describe it, tell as a story when I would talk to people about auctions, and so what I would say for a traditional real estate sale is I'd say the standard way of marketing on the MLS and the exposures you bring with that is like putting if you're a shop, if you're Macy's or Nordstrom's and you're on Fifth Avenue, and if you're a buyer for that company and you have this beautiful, shop front and a big window and you have lots of people walking by, then what matters is like, did I buy the right inventory? Did I price it well? If I put in the inventory, people come in and buy it. And for people that are looking to sell at auction, there's not necessarily a match there, right? And so what you need to be is like off Fifth Avenue, and you have to have a certain type of buyer that's walking by, looking for maybe an in piece of inventory that is slightly different than what everybody else is looking for, because it doesn't necessarily match the first time or second time or any home buyer that wants to walk into the property that's supposed to look like a magazine, right? And that's what the market has really been trained to today. And so, if you're looking for to assist a seller that needs time certainty, auctions are a great way to go, right? Um, Lastly, as far as making money, there was a question of like, hey, there's no co-op. So that like, I know for auction.com, a huge portion of our business is conducting the foreclosures auctions, just like Xome was saying, just like Jansen was saying. And so those are not, candidly, those are not built for agents, right? But I can tell you from attending them, and even though I'm new to this business, there are lots of people out there that are helping people buy at auction, being paid for it, right? That we actually just had a story here at auction.com. I know you can find it on LinkedIn, where a woman describes she was a buyer. She tried to buy a home that was in short sale. It didn't get approved. It went to foreclosure. And when she talks about the story, she still talks about going to the foreclosure with her agent, right? Her agent helped her through the process. Her auction.com, our people helped them both through the process. And so just because you're not getting a co-op, I mean, listen, we do not live like, even though a lot of properties are still paying co-ops today, our industry is still under pressure from how that is dealt with the buyer's commitment to pay your commission, right? And so I wouldn't think about it any differently. When it does come to co-ops, look at, I can't speak for the other portals. I can just speak to my marketplace, but about 30% of our REO inventory does pay a buyer's agent commission, right? It's right on the page. And so if I would look in my market, if you want to try and work with investors, what does a wholesaler really do well for on the not just get the inventory, but they're cultivating people that they're bird dogging deals for, right? And so that's the value add. And so whether it's helping a homeowner, through that, through the buying at foreclosure, or a buyer helping them through buying at foreclosure, or finding somebody for REO where it's paying co-op, there's a value add there. Lastly, let me just see how I time myself here. So I'm almost out of time. Now, if we could go to the last slide. So we have started a new agent program called Smart Sale. It is primarily focused on helping private owners sell with auction.com in cooperation with a local listing agent. These are all listed with a local listing agent. We do have a website for this called smartsale.com/agent, where you can go and sign up to be part of the referral network. There are no fees to be a part of it. To join it, I should say. There's referral fees when you get a referral, of course. And there was a question about like insurance requirements. Like the insurance requirement is your E&O insurance, right? You have to have a valid license. You have to have E&O insurance. We're going to vet you as far as, are you an agent in the local market that has experience, right? We're very passionate about this program. I'm super passionate about it. I mean, my personal story here is after the '08 crash, I actually had to short sale my own home, right? It was the worst process ever. And somebody asked me the other day, in relation to like what I have listed with auction.com when I went to short sell my house. And it was in a time in the market where like, yeah, I put it on the MLS. Yes, I went through price reductions. I really struggled to get an offer, never mind everything I had to go through to get it processed for a short sale. And my answer was like, I would have done anything and given it to anybody that could bring me an offer. I didn't care, right? I just wanted to sell my house and not be foreclosed on, right? And so, those are the things that you can do, to add value and earn commissions when it comes to the, I hate to use the word distress, but like, it's in this part of the market. There's this stage that people need help, right? And they're looking for you to be their guide. There's a stage that people are looking to buy more at foreclosure, and there are more people trying to buy at foreclosure, but it's a fuzzy process and it's not that comfortable, especially when you add in the fact that you can't get into these homes most of the time and they don't know how to go about that process. And then there's the REO process that, more retail buyers would take that step, but they need a guide. They need a guide, and that's all of you. I hope that helps. I look forward to all the questions.
Yes. Thank you, Russo. That was a very informative presentation. And we thank you again for being here today. So our final presenter is Paul Vaguri, who is the Vice President and Head of Commercial and Retail Brokerage at Hubzu. Paul is well known throughout the industry for his work strengthening relationships between agents, servicers, and auction platforms while helping drive innovation and disposition strategies. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. I will turn the presentation over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Annie. As Annie shared, I'm Paul Viguerie. You can go back one slide. So I'm Paul Viguerie. I've been on probably 200 calls with Mike Jansta, so we know each other well. And as he indicated early on the call, that we're all friends here. So I'm really thankful that Annie REOX put a platform like this together where we could speak. And I think some of us are actually sharing the same message, and you'll kind of hear some repetition here, which is actually quite a good thing. So to start, I'm a huge, passionate fan of auction, and then also of brokers and agents. So my first job out of college was in New York on the exchange floor. So my career has always been very, very close to auction. And then I was also raised in a family where my father was a broker for 45 years. So I don't know that I know any time in life where I wasn't around either brokers or auctions. So it's interesting to find myself here working with brokers and an auction platform, Hubzu, which is a business of owned by Altisource, the parent company. But there's a few reasons why that I feel so strongly about auction and then also brokers, and it's simply this: one, it works, and the auction model just brings tremendous liquidity, transparency, and competition, which leads to price discovery. And then two, when I think of brokers, they're localized, experienced experts. So they represent intellectual capital, and you combine that, and you really have tremendous synergy. Therefore, when working together in a teamwork fashion, by definition, auction is not a dirty word. So if you go to the next slide, Annie, I'll kind of show what we're seeing, and maybe even one more, and where we're going at Hubzu. So there we're seeing a lot of growth in REOs. And so I did a small presentation for REOX several months ago, and what I shared was that, we saw 16% growth in referrals in 25 versus 24, and then in the first quarter of 26 we saw that amount of growth. So we grew at what we did in an annualized rate in 25, and then we've already seen that again in the second quarter. So we are growing, which is great, but it's not simply in default. We're certainly growing in default, and I think that we're following the market to some degree. But then we're also growing in diversification as we've started to sell different types of asset classes on our platform: retail, I'd say pocket listings or off market, and then commercial properties as well more recently. And then we're even having plans, and I'm thinking of Russo here, to enter into the luxury space, where we have clients that have shared we would love to sell at 5 million and above, and so we're going to be pursuing that. And each time we've added a new type of category, we've seen buyers come in, and so now we just continue to grow the number of buyers. So what's contributing? But I know many on this call are primarily interested in REO. Inflation has been a huge factor here. That's definitely impacted affordability. There has been an economic shift. We see longer days on the market. It really does come back to this taxes and insurance event that Christopher mentioned. But it is leading to a rising tide in REOs. We're not suggesting that, a recession is around the corner. The economies go up, go down, but we do see these structural pressures, leading to expanded number of REOs going forward. And we can go to the next slide. I'll be quick here. I think that people often turn on their televisions and they hear that the stock market made a new high, and therefore the perception is that means that everybody's doing well. Often the stock market can make new highs when a handful of stocks are going straight up. They come up with different acronyms when that's occurring, the FANGs, or and then they talk about those stocks, and so what you may find is the stock market making new highs, but half of the stocks are going sideways or not keeping up. So the household reality is that wages have lagged, and with inflation pressures and weaker dollar, it hasn't really allowed for people to continue to maintain their homes. So the bottom line is, key message: macro strength hasn't equaled consumer strength. So the next slide, please. So this is probably a very important slide. Christopher mentioned many aspects of this, but I probably should have named it the not so hidden affordability crisis versus the hidden affordability crisis. I think people are fully aware of of where the pressure is coming from. And so I often say when it comes to pity, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, half of pity is a balloon mortgage. And so taxes have skyrocketed, and so has insurance. Insurance, if you think about that as a replacement cost event with a aged housing stock, let's call it 40 years, that's just, I think Christopher said it's gone up 100% in some markets. And so that puts pressure on homeowners. And then like from 1984 to basically 2020, we saw a falling interest rate environment where people could access refi um, quite easily and put money in their pocket and really move forward in a manner that allowed them to kind of iron over some of the burdens of, say,
Oh,
them
Paul, sorry, we lost you for a second.
to kind of and now they have gone up. And so refi used to allow people to kind of get out of some of their problem situations in real estate, and that doesn't exist anymore as it once did. And so the burden of taxes and insurance has taken a bigger bite. So affordability has become more difficult. We can actually go on to the next slide. So Hubzu's been a great platform for both selling real estate and buying real estate. And so we've sold over and so both on the buy side and the sell side. So on the buy side, I know we've paid out $850 million in commissions. So we have uh, investors.
Paul, if you can hear me, you are cutting out for me. I'm not sure for the rest of
Or
the audience.
okay, I don't know why. I
Oh,
hope I hope I
now I
can
can
continue. Can you hear me?
now I can hear you great. If you could say those last couple sentences again.
So on the buy side, we've paid $850 million in buyer commissions. On the sell side, we've launched a program, which I'll share on the next slide, which has really helped brokers sell properties directly on our platform. And when doing so, we call it dual path. We even share we don't charge the sellers and we don't charge the brokers, and we share our the buyer premium revenue back with brokers. So it's very lucrative, but it's also it allows us to work in a teamwork fashion, which enhances the results. Next slide, please. So the broker affiliate program. This has been a huge passion of mine at Hubzu. It's been extraordinarily successful. We see massive change and opportunity in this space to work together. As I mentioned, you have local experts and you've got expanded outreach with Hubzu. And when you combine that on our platform, we've been able to really do just about anything. And it's been very, very good. So we work with regional brokers, we work with agents, we work with national brokerages in helping them sell their properties on our platform. And more recently, we've begun to do it in the commercial space. So it's not just in residential real estate, but I really think that this is going to be the future. So far, the adoption in auction has been primarily on the default side, and I think the future of auction is going to be in the other 97% of more traditional listings. And so the sky is the limit here. It one becomes a broker affiliate, and then we provide ongoing training. We work together on how to best use the program, and really we've built it primarily by listening to brokers. The brokers have been extraordinary in sharing what works, what they like, what they could utilize, and so it's been a series of iterations based on what the feedback we've received and then how to make it work best. There's been a lot of education that's gone into it, and it continues to evolve. But I'm fully bullish on this program. Next slide, please. And so, one of the primary reasons brokers like it, and we're happy to work with brokers, is that with this program, the broker doesn't lose control. It's the broker's listing. We do not get involved in the listing agreement and never intend to. And it's a reserve auction, so this is not a fire sale, and we work together with those brokers on the leads that we receive and follow up, and it's a massive education process with both the buyers and also with the sellers, and it really is effective and works. And so, as the key message here is, it enhances a listing and it doesn't replace the agent. Anyway, that's what I have to share, and thank you all, and perhaps we move on to Q&A.
Yes, thank you again so much, Paul, for that informative presentation. And thank you to all of our speakers for sharing your insights with us in your presentations. We are now going to move on to our moderated panel discussion. So these questions are directed to the panel as a whole. So everyone on the panel, feel free to jump in wherever you would like. The first question that I have, actually, Paul, you were just speaking about some training for agents who have never participated in an auction transaction. What is the best way to get started? Are there any training programs or certifications, um, preferred agent opportunities available through your platforms?
I'll jump in on there. We actually just had one of those training sessions today for the Xome agent network. It was an hour before this, and so we'd heard that a number of those agents were going to come to this, and so our thing had to finish right on time so they could come and see this webinar. So
That's awesome. How regularly do you conduct those training
we
webinars?
do them quarterly.
Very good.
And we've done them at different conferences as well. So as we go to live conferences, like sometimes we'll have an in-person version of that as well. But we do it at least quarterly online. And when agents join our network, they get invited to those. So
And how long do those typically run?
it's usually an hour, unless we do, a larger thing if there's a new change in the marketplace. Yeah, especially like Christopher was talking about CWCOT, and when there's pricing changes and things that are pretty significant, we'll give the education over to that agent network so that they're aware of what's happening in the marketplace, whether that is a commissionable type of transaction or not, just so they know like what's going on in their market.
Very nice. Okay. Um, Paul, you were speaking of training as
Yeah.
well. Could you go into that a little bit?
We have our town hall next week, and so anyway, and I'm sure that some of the ones that use Hubzu use Xome too. So it could be some of the same audience that are on this call, but the town hall is a great time to discuss what's new in the market. Next week we're going to talk about commercial as one of our features, but then also some of the best practices that we've learned from the agents that are really knocking it out of the park. And so, what are they doing? How are they achieving those results? And is it, are these portable strategies that can be learned? And I fully believe they are. And so, things get tweaked a little bit, and it can be something very, very small. And so, uh, when one of the common themes that I share with agents in training is there is no such thing as a bad bid, and that on the broker side, they sometimes view that as an unserious buyer. Oh, I had a call with an unserious buyer, and I don't see it that way. Um, Encourage all people to place an offer, place your offer on the platform, and the reason is that that can lead to someone else placing an offer or bid on the platform, which can result in a bidding war. We've seen auctions that look quiet and then one bid shows up and then the next thing you know there's an explosion and you can't even believe, like it's like fish, nothing's biting and then they're biting and then you're like, how did that happen? So that's a tiny example, but it's a very important one. Encourage people to place the bid.
That makes sense. Okay, if no one else has anything to add on training.
I have one thing I want to say on top of Paul,
Yes.
which is Barbara Corcoran was an advisor to us at Concierge Auctions, and she had a great saying that goes along with what Paul just said, which is nobody wants what nobody wants, and everybody wants what everybody wants.
There you go.
Right. That's a great saying. Um, okay, so our next question is, and I see tons of questions coming through the audience Q&A, which we will be moving on to here shortly. So keep on typing your questions in as well. How do you help agents explain auction strategy to traditional retail buyers who may be hesitant about the process?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
It's pretty simple to me. Uh, it expands the marketplace for those buyers, and most of the agents that we deal with are much like the rest of the platforms. We deal with agents that understand the auction process. This is simply a way to find kind of a wider net. Um, Not all of our buyers are going to be investors. We have a lot of homeowners that are buying at auction. I don't want to overgeneralize, but when you're coming from the west side of the country to the middle of the country, generally they're cash buyers, and they get a lot more for their money, and they're able to buy it that way. The agent is simply bringing them properties, much like they do in a today environment, and walking through what the process is. It's different. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just different, if that makes sense.
It does.
I'll-
Thank you so much.
I also would like to weigh in. Some of the principles are always the same, which is do your homework, have a plan, and don't overpay. And a good agent can always help with that. And so, if you're going to participate in an auction, and some will call and say, "Hey, I've never participated in auction," and in some of our auctions, there's a buy it now button, and they often just say, I'll just click that. And then they click the buy it now button and they've simply bypassed an auction. And so it's a form. It's on our platform. However, it's just showing up with a plan and executing it and recognizing, don't get emotional and let that the bidding process get you so excited that you're trying to win something as opposed to purchase something.
Yeah, Paul, to add on to that, we do our asset management does the dual path where it's if it gets stale in the asset management, we put it over also onto the auction platform. And I always tell our servicers or our agents that are out there, listen, if it is a better retail offer, we take the better retail offer and we pull it off of auction. When a consumer says, "I don't want to be a part of an auction process," great, give me your best, offer, and we'll pull it out of auction if the seller agrees to it. It doesn't, it's not a definitive one way or the other. It's what's in the best solution for either the homeowner or for the servicer if they're selling the property. I would prefer to sell it on auction, but I can sell it either way because it's what's in the best interest of our client.
So I'd like to just lob in there. So on auction.com, we have auctions and offers, right? So an offer that comes in online or offline for us is what Chris is talking about. Making offers outside of the auction to, gazump the auction of like, hey, we're not going to use your platform because we don't want to. I didn't do that when I owned concierge auctions, right? Because, as Paul had said, when you have people participate in the auction, it drives better outcomes, right? And so that's a philosophical difference. When we're holding an auction, we're holding an auction, right? And so it's our job to get people comfortable with the auction, right? And if it's more of a fit for something that should have an offer, right? Because there's going to be people that want terms, right? That's why you do it. It's because they're not cash as is, and they want to buy something with terms, whether they set the closing, they're buying with traditional financing, whatever it is. Then for us, it'll be on the offer platform, right? And we have a large growing inventory of those, which are the ones that I referred to that are listed with local brokers.
Yeah, I think there's a conflict when there's an off-market offer versus an auction bid, and someone's usually just trying to get around a buyer's premium when they can just build that into the amount they bid, like
Yeah.
subtract 5% or subtract 3% or whatever it is on that specific property. But the way we like train agents that are representing buyers is that we give them a separate login experience on Xome.com so that they can log in themselves and their buyer, and then they can bid on behalf of their buyer on the Xome platform. So that if they have any questions, they can call our US-based customer care team, and then they can, communicate directly with our actual auctioneers that conduct every online sale as well. So if they have questions as the auctions are ending, they have people to talk to. So then an agent doesn't have to be an auction expert to represent their buyer, but they'll be the voice of reason, that's for sure. Like Paul was saying, like you're not here to win something, you're here to buy something. A lot of auction platforms really want you to win something. They like those bidding wars, just like home sellers in a traditional transaction. They love bidding wars too. And it's ironic we call it the same thing. But
Yeah.
we have educational materials on our site, like FAQs for agents and for people who are buying on behalf of themselves. And there's always someone to talk to.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. The last moderated question that we're going to ask, since I see so many audience questions coming in, is what are servicers looking for from auction partners today that they maybe weren't looking for 5 years ago?
Everything.
Auction is a fantastic thing because it sets the market. It's, the property is worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. And if from a servicer standpoint, it used to be how quickly can you get rid of this property? Now it's can we get the best return on that property? And, when I sit in the room with the servicers, with the banks, and explain an auction is a fantastic way to set a market because it's worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. And if it's been exposed nationwide, chances are we're getting you the best possible outcome based on the exposure in the marketplace. I assume it's similar for the rest of y'all.
Would everyone echo
I'll
that?
weigh in.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So some things they've wanted more than 5 years ago, which certainly is performance and then ease of doing business. But I would also say that, in some instances, a local expert is a great idea, especially, on a more complicated asset, where there could be issues, and so that could be in around the property condition or an HOA or a variety of everything could come up. And so it's good to have a combination and some bench strength on who to work with if needed.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to maximized recovery, right? So what servicers are asking of us is where are we going to get the best return on the disposition platform? Is it going to be in short sale? Is it going to be at the foreclosure sale? Are we going to take it REO and repair it and put it on the MLS? And so like we have all of those options along the entire kind of distress cycle of, hey, you have a borrower that's in distress. Like we can work with that borrower. We can assign an agent to it. We can put it retail on the MLS. We're members of 98% of the properties on the MLS. And our agent can do a traditional listing, or the person that wants to sell it more quickly, they can put in the auction process. We've sold hundreds of properties that way. in the past year. And then, is it like sell it faster at the foreclosure sale, price it right? Like how do we figure out the price so that we can make sure that the investors will duke it out at the foreclosure sale? Take it REO. We have clients that they've bought portfolios of NPLs, non-performing loans, that they want to take REO so they can repair them and sell them retail, or turn them into single-family rentals and rental portfolios and sell off the ones that don't fit into those geos that they're targeting. So it really is soup to nuts. Like, what is going to be their best recovery on a bad performing loan, and how do we help them do it?
Thank you, Jan. So that was very helpful. So we have a lot of questions from the audience. I'll just dive right into those. And of the moderated questions we had left, all of you gave such informative presentations that I feel most of it was covered. So we have Laura Dietz, who is one of our REOX members, as well as being on our advisory council, asking, at what point should an asset manager decide that an auction is not a fallback strategy, but rather the preferred disposition strategy from day one?
Oh, heck.
Ooh, I mean, always. I mean, you're talking a bunch of auction guys,
Right.
right?
Every
Yeah.
single
And
time. Yeah.
and so the here's it goes back to what I said. Sorry, I just started talking.
Oh, you're great.
The big thing about the auction business here in America is that it's it's grown to be like, oh, this is a last resort, right? And in fact, we're seeing across the board that more people are choosing it up front, right? And again, I go back to what I said at the start, which is they want to control time and certainty, right? And so, I don't care whether you list it on the MLS or an auction platform or wherever it is. The reality is the most that you're probably going to sell a property for is within its first 30 days that it hits the market, right? No matter what you choose as your strategy, right? Because after that, then the best part, like people that are actively looking right then, are looking for fresh inventory, and once it grows stale, right? And so I would contend that auction should be at the start of your strategy.
Right.
And I look at it a little different, only because the asset management side of REO and of auction. Um, I think most of us would agree, regardless of the auction portfolio or the auction strategy, um, MLS with a local buyer is generally, and I say generally, the best execution if it's exposed to the right buyer pool. Um, it's the low hanging fruit when you list something on the MLS. If you don't get good feedback in that first 30 days, an auction is always going to be our solution as a dual path. But, doesn't mean that auction isn't a good solution. It's just on tougher assets, we generally take those straight to auction. If it's a showing ready property, that's going to stay probably on the asset management side a little bit longer, because we're looking for a retail buyer that wants to be able to walk it and feel it and look at it. If it's not the greatest property, that might be a straight to auction solution. It really is going to depend on what the waterfall looks like and what's the best execution for that client.
That makes sense. Would anybody else like to chime in on that question?
Sure, sure. So one, we collect a lot of data at Hubzu, and two, receive scorecards, and so so I'm speaking in aggregate. But what we've learned is that the inclusion of auction accelerates sales timelines and maximizes sale price. And on the data that we are track on each sale, we're able to quantify and down to the zip code level, where are homes or properties selling in relation to reserve. So it's valuable information, but there's a lot of quantitative data to suggest that auction, tapping into that liquidity, and per Russo's comment, trying to sell quickly in the beginning, we offer that right out of the gates. And so I'm I know that there are, exceptions to that rule of thumb, but I'm just a big believer in auction.
And by the way, like I know we're talking about servicers here, but we get a lot of REO agents. Like the reality is our paradigm, all of ours, has changed since COVID, right? We used to sit there and, pre-COVID and sit there and say, oh, like, average time on market can be 6 months, right? That's what NAR would say. Now people like if they don't have offers, even in today's market, if they don't have offers in 14 to 21 days, they're like, what's wrong with it? Right? It's a complete paradigm shift of where we sit today that people are putting value on speed, right? And that's why we have other competing platforms like Open Door, OfferPad, or iBuyers or wholesalers or whatever. It's like there's an aspect of there is a willingness that people will pay for speed, right? And that's just part of our real estate market today.
Yeah, but if we think about like the original question of an asset manager, when do they decide that the property should go to auction? If that property's in foreclosure and they're not doing a short sale or a deed in lieu, it's going to auction. Like it's going to the foreclosure sale, and that's an auction.
Which
So no matter what, there's going to be that first auction, and then the decision, if it's CWCOT that they're servicing, it's going to go into a second chance auction, usually online as well, before it's going retail. But as I mentioned earlier, our asset managers will look at every single property and decide like what is going to be the highest recovery. And sometimes the client wants to direct it to retail. They own it, right? And they can just say, "Hey, I want you to get occupancy. I want you to do these repairs." And as an asset manager, we do that for our clients and send it to an agent, part of the Xome agent network, who lists it on the MLS, and it's not in auction at the same time. And that's a lot of how traditional REO used to happen, like in the 90s and in the 2000s, where it went, to an REO agent, and it went and they got it vacant and they did repairs and they tried to sell it on the MLS. And if it didn't, it would go to the auction platform as an aged, vacant, sometimes mostly repaired REO, and you could sell it to a home buyer, with traditional financing. But that's flipped on its end as yeah, I think the servicers want, not to hold it that long anymore. They want to maximize their recovery by selling it as soon as possible in that cycle. And if it's at foreclosure sale, you can sell it. Fantastic. If it's not, it's REO, sell it occupied REO. If it's not, put it into a traditional auction unless we think that there's a lot of value in investing a little bit of money in it to repair it and sell it retail and pop it on the MLS. It's really like what's the best thing to do with this house today, as we look to the future, because if it's an REO, there's a high likelihood that the bank is losing money. Like, the servicer is going to lose money on the foreclosures. Like, how do we lose less money? And that's when they're going to decide auction sooner, or there's a potential to actually make back some of that by holding it, fixing it, and selling it retail.
that makes sense. Thank you so much. And Jansta, we did have a couple questions come in for you specifically. First being, how do agents get on the training list? So whenever you are having one of those webinars, if they want to be alerted, where should they go to make that happen?
That is a really good question. There is an email that's Xome agent support at Xome.com. So XOME agent support at Xome.com. Or you can just send an email to me directly. My last name, Jansta at Xome.com, is also an easy way. But Xome agent support at Xome.com will get them to the right person,
Okay.
that will help them directly.
To make sure that they get the invite for those training sessions.
Correct.
Okay. And then I know that we were speaking of E&O insurance. With Xome specifically, what are the insurance requirements for agents to sign up as a broker?
I have no idea.
Okay.
But that Xome agent support, like I
Oh,
guarantee you
yeah.
that you'll get probably Jen on our team will reply back, with what those requirements are. So, but I'll be honest, I don't know.
Okay. I think for the most part, it's usually errors and omissions and
Mhm.
license, real estate license, and sometimes a background check.
I'm a licensed auctioneer, but not a licensed agent.
Right. Okay, so moving on, the next question is for Christopher. Where do you see the greatest need for experienced REO brokers over the next 12 to 24 months as foreclosure activity continues to normalize? This is from a member of REOX, Jennifer Raspini. So,
Great.
the greatest
Thanks,
need for experienced brokers.
thanks, Jennifer. So I default back to the asset management side of our business, uh, simply because that's where, from a line level standpoint, our REO side of the business, the asset management side of the business, is in need of excellent boots on the ground, is in need of local knowledge, and the agents and the brokerages that we work with across the country, they treat it like it's their asset. They look at it, they feel like, this is, they offer up to our asset managers what is the best solution for an asset. The thing that I'm not sure if everybody understands this, but once it's gone REO, there's not a recoverable amount. There's not a budget. There's not hey, they can write this off. They can do whatever. It comes directly off the P&L of that particular REO. And so we really look for the local brokerages, local agents to give us, hey, if you did X, Y, and Z, this is the best return on your investment. Now, that I think is invaluable because we're looking at it from a desktop standpoint. The local buyer knows what the local community is looking to buy. So I don't know if that answered it or not.
That did, that's very helpful. Our next question is for the whole group. So I think there's a little bit of confusion from this agent getting into auctions for the first time. Um, do you only work with the listing agent, or do you also work with the agent bringing in the buyer?
I
Both.
mean, at least,
Oh,
yeah, at least for me, if you remember, I said 30% of our REO inventory pays a co-op, right? Not everything, right? It's based on the seller, but 30% pays a
Okay,
co-op.
I think
Yeah,
that,
almost all of our REO pays a co-op.
Yeah,
yep. Same
same.
here.
okay, that's great to know. Okay, and then what can auction companies um, and agents do better to work together to gain more participation from the listing brokers? I think that's kind of been the overarching topic of what we've all been discussing anyway, but do you have any additional thoughts on that?
Could you repeat the question, please? I'm not sure I
Yeah.
So,
understood it.
what can auction companies and agents do, to better cooperate together, so that more listing brokers are interested in participating with auctions and not seeing it as a negative?
Well,
I mean, go ahead. Somebody else can answer,
I was going
suppose.
to say, we're not stealing a buyer. We're not stealing a listing. We're expanding their marketing is the way that I always present it. And I think that puts them at ease. We pull stuff out of auction all the time for agents that bring us a listing and there's just not a good buyer, but they might have a buyer. Maybe not the great best practice, but it's certainly, we're not there to poach anything.
Right. Do you think that perception comes from long ago? And why do you think that some people still have that perception of auction being a dirty word? Like, um,
I was saying
They're
earlier
not,
about properties that were on the MLS, and then when they became aged REO, they would go to the auction
yeah,
company, and they would look at that listing as getting poached because their
yeah,
commission would be smaller now.
Yeah.
yeah,
And so that did happen in the past, but it's not happening these days.
yeah. No, it's
Right.
That listing agent typically is going to get paid exactly what they were going to get paid. We've just expanded their marketing.
Well, if you think about a property that's on one of the hundreds of MLSs that are out there, right? It's really, I mean, it gets aggregated onto these larger platforms, but it's being marketed to agents that are also on that MLS, and you've gone local, But when you go to the auction company, any one of us, like we go global, right? And so, like we literally are syndicating our assets to other portals, whether they're things like RealtyTrack and Foreclosure.com or Zillow and Trulia. And, with us, Redfin, we have a relationship with Redfin because Xome is owned by Rocket. And it's, you have that broader footprint so that it can bring more eyeballs onto a property all at once. And then the competitive, advantage of having multiple people compete on a property will lead to the best recovery. So
yeah,
Awesome.
the agents should want to embrace more, especially since it's free.
Right.
Yeah. And I
And
think that Mike's point of going global, that we've seen a trend in that. And so we're pushing 2% of our sales are to an international buyer at this point. It's between 1 and 2, but it's kind of trending higher, which is, it might sound small, but that's it's not insignificant, especially if it's growing.
okay. And I do see some agents asking how to become a part of your um, agent networks. So we do have one asking Paul how to become an affiliate agent with Hubzu. I know we lost our slides up here, so I will share this recording with everyone that does have in the beginning of the conversation how to sign up with these auction platforms as part of their agent network. And you can always email me and I'll get you that information over as well. So if you're not already a part of these agent networks, pretty streamlined to do that.
Yeah, just send me an email or contact Annie and she'll give you my email.
Yes. And yeah, same thing. I see a lot of for Xome, for auction.com. How do we sign up as a broker? So we'll get that information over to you when we send over the recording as well. So, and let me see. Last question from our audience. Do any of you see AI changing your business model at all in the next few years?
Who doesn't?
A
yeah.
few weeks.
It changes. It's changing now. It's been changing in the last 6 months, and it will continue to change. It's a tool. It is not a scary word in my mind.
Well, it's going to change the way we do all of our operations as well, like how we manage property data, how we manage customer databases, how we manage photographs, how we how we do almost everything, like all of our
Yeah.
contact and personalization. It's evolving at lightning speed, and if you're not jumping on the train, you're going to be left behind. So.
Yeah.
All right. Before we wrap up, I'd like to give each panelist an opportunity to share any takeaways that you'd like to leave the audience. Anyone? Y'all already gave so much information.
I think I gave my takeaway in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
I think so too, but I'll reiterate it. Like I've been saying this for like 15 years, and um, I, as I learned about foreclosure sales and how they worked, and Mike said he's gone out to a ton of those. I know Paul has, and I'm sure Chris has too. When you go out to these live sales, it's eye-opening. Like
Oh yeah.
if you haven't been to the foreclosure sale in your own market, you better go and see what it's about because it's really going to change your mind. And there might not be a commission structure there, but you can have an agreement with someone where you go out and represent them, whether it's a high net worth person like a doctor or a dentist that can't be at a foreclosure sale on a Tuesday morning or a Thursday afternoon or whatever it is, or it's somebody that wants you to bid online using remote bidding, and you can like look at the strategy more globally and say, hey, we're going to invest in Georgia and Tennessee and California and Nevada, and I'm going to create these portfolios for you and work with property managers in those areas and manage your portfolio. You can make a ton of money representing other people. And who knows how to like work with, home buyers and investors better than real estate agents. Like that's what they're great at. So that opportunity is out there.
I'd
And
like
I
to
think it's
second
not
that.
leveraged.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Jansen, but
No,
there
that was
was
it.
somebody that wrote a question saying that actually is not a thing, that people won't do it. And I think all of us can say firsthand, and I can definitely tell you firsthand that some of our top, what would be considered our top bidders, are representing lots of other people at the auctions, right?
Yep.
They're being those fees do not get paid by us or whoever's having the foreclosure done. Those fees are being paid by whoever's buying it, and some of these people represent hundreds of other people at those auctions.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's how remote bidding started with an auction.com auction in Atlanta because a guy had $1 million and couldn't spend it in Fulton County. And we just made a telephone thing, right? Where it's like, hey, he's going to bid on this property in Gwinnett. Oh, he's going to bid on this property in Bibb County. And we spent all $1 million of his money because he couldn't do it in the one place. That's how it all started.
Oh,
One guy representing other people. So it's a thing.
Yeah, I would third that. If you can ever make it to, like, here in Dallas County, I'm in the Dallas Fort Worth area. Um, the first Tuesday of every month, I equate it to our senior management as it's like the Star Wars bar scene, the cantina scene. It is every type of individual you've ever seen. Um, when I go, I will talk to the bidders because most of them are representing 5 to 10 different people and have a spreadsheet of, oh, they want to bid on this. Oh, these 3 people are bidding on this, but I know this is the high bid for my buyer. There is a entire marketplace for people representing other people at these courthouse steps. It's and I've been on the other side of it, taking millions of dollars down to the courthouse steps and bidding on behalf of multiple funds. That is a perfectly normal and acceptable way to do it.
This is the shirt I wear out to those auctions. That's why it's so bright. Like I
Yeah,
wore it especially for this webinar just because of that.
yeah. Mine,
yeah.
mine, mine isn't quite as bright as yours, but I'll have to work on that.
I have
Thank
one thing to add. I was just going to say that I think that from to sum up where I see this going, and probably where we all see this going, is auction is going to become increasingly mainstream, and so a conversation it has emerged. And while we're calling this auction is not a dirty word, I'd like to think that in 2 years, or a year, 2 years, no one's even going to be thinking along those lines because we've embraced teamwork. And so the conversation started. Please just get involved in it and have a say in it as we figure out ways to work together. And that includes all of us. I do believe we're open to growth together, and there's a lot that we're going to be accomplished. But the market share is going to increase in this space.
Thank you so much, Paul. I think that's a great closing point, and thank you to all of our panelists for your participation and sharing your expertise with us and perspectives on the evolution of auction platforms and agent collaboration. So I'm so happy that we got to do this and bring you all together. It seems like a industry events, it's like you'll have one auction representative, but never you guys all in the same place. So we really appreciate you coming together like this. So once again, we have Michael Jansta with Xome, Christopher Link with RealtyBid and Covius, Mike Russo with Auction.com, and Paul Viguri with Hubzu. On behalf of the REOX Housing Exchange, thank you everyone for spending a section of their afternoon with us. And we hope to all see you at the Housing Intelligence Conference, November 8th through 10th. I have to do a plug for that. So it's
Heck yeah.
thehousingintelligence.com if you would like to register. So yeah, and thank you again, everyone. I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Annie.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
Bye.
you.
everybody.
Appreciate
Bye.
you.
Bye to everybody.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.